Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Caregiver Truths. And of course, as a reminder, this is where we talk about things that a lot of people aren't comfortable talking about, but things that need to be said to better support caregivers. It may be uncomfortable, but it's a blessing to caregivers when they know somebody can relate. I've heard caregivers, I've seen them, their eyes just light up, when you share things that you've been through or things that you just heard about or read about, that helps as well, because it's just really good when they know somebody feels my pain, somebody understands this. And let me say too, yeah, this is called Caregiver Truth. There is a lot of good, of course, that comes from being a caregiver, especially to somebody that you absolutely love and that has been so good to you in your life. So, I don't want anybody to get it twisted and think, y'all are just talking about all the negative stuff. No, we're talking about the truths that too many people don't want to share. Oh, it's wonderful, of course, to share your joys. That's fine. It's wonderful when you have all the support you need as a caregiver. That's great. But we need to do something more for those people who don't fall into that category. There are caregivers who are out here literally by themselves. There are caregivers caring for someone, and they have a caregiver themselves. I have talked to a couple of people. They are a caregiver and they have a caregiver. So I'm telling you, there's so many scenarios. It is just unthinkable. There really are. Um, let's talk about what you think you've lost or what you have actually lost by being a caregiver. One thing is freedom. A lot of people, you can't move around like you used to. You've got to be there to make sure that your loved ones' needs are being taken care of. That's huge. Um, you might not be able to even take a nap like you used to. That little 3 o'clock nap you used to get every Sunday after church, you may have to forego that, in fact. Absolutely. You can't go out shopping. You can't necessarily hang out with your friends like you used to, going to concerts. You can't do as much. And it's just a matter of not being able to do everything that you used to do. It's a new normal. It's a new normal. Things have to change. A lot of people think that they have lost their identity. Yeah, because now you are the daughter, but you're also the nurse. You're the mom, with a special needs child possibly, but now you're a social worker too. You've got to advocate for your child and yourself. Absolutely. Roles start to just shift in families. When you are caring for someone, your roles do shift. Caregiving can seem to diminish a person's identity because of all the responsibilities that they have. But I don't believe it erases your identity because you are still that awesome, beautiful, talented person who loves to write. You it's still there, so you haven't lost that. You just are not able to necessarily do it, as much as you have been able to do it in the past. But I think that's very important for caregivers to understand, for anybody that's going through something that does not allow them to do what they normally would do um, for enjoyment, pleasure, whatever. You haven't lost it. The potential is still there. You just don't have as many opportunities to do it as you once did. But it's very important to realize that it is still there. And it's important to also realize that, you know what, this too shall pass. This too shall pass, however it passes. But this time in my life will not always be like this. You have got to always give yourself hope. You've got to always give yourself hope. You should always have something to look forward to every single day. Every day. I learned that several years ago. It can be something as simple as playing solitaire on the computer, which I do every single day. I use that as a reward when I have completed a task, maybe some writing or something that I have said I needed to do. I use that, among a few other things as a reward, but it's something to look forward to, because you tell yourself, you got to finish this, before you can do that. Plus, it's just a good distraction, and it also strengthens your mind. It really does. I love all the games that they have now that really help us. Our cognitive abilities strengthen. It's real important. But, and we're talking about things that caregivers feel that they've lost because of their roles and their responsibilities, but it's just important to know you have not lost your identity. You're still a mom. You're still a mom. You still have those same potentials, those same things that you've done or that you've wanted to do. So hold on to those. That's real important. Of course, sometimes you lose relationships. Your social circles shrink. You may not necessarily get the invitations you used to, which I think is just wrong, because even if you are pretty sure the person can't go, invite them anyway. Don't assume. I always say, don't think for other people. You don't know, this could be a good time when they got somebody to come in to sit with their loved one and they can go to the concert, but those relationships are so important, and sadly so many of them are lost because of a caregiver's responsibility. A lot of persons who we cannot necessarily identify as real friends will say, I'm so tired of hearing her complain. All she does is talk about having to do this with her mama, what her mama says. I'm just tired of hearing it. Hey, come on now. Sometimes you got to let it go in one ear and out the other, but you still need to listen if that's someone you consider a friend. And plus, they need that. They need a safe space where they can vent. You may not have the solution, but you can at least listen. That's very important because, again, I think I said this early on. We're either going to be a caregiver or we're going to need a caregiver at some point. And interestingly enough, just like I mentioned, sometimes you will be in both roles at the same time. So just be mindful of that. When you have a person in your life that is a caregiver, just be mindful. Be soft, be gentle with them. That's real important. Let's look at a few other things too. Your work, your career. Oh yeah, a lot of times jobs are lost, careers are lost. Sometimes you even have to get demoted because you can no longer take on the responsibilities that you used to have. You can't travel like you used to travel on your job. So a lot of times that compromise has to come in place where you have to step down and take a position where, that travel is not involved, at least not as much. Um, Relationships again. I'm telling you, caregiving has really done a job on relationships. It can do a real number on them. It really, really can. That is the time when you all have to circle the wagons, I'm telling you, and really come together if you want that relationship to continue to thrive and be well, so you can do well. Because the caregiving can really take its toll. And it's even worse if you're taking care of somebody that your spouse or your partner does not like. That is really gonna make it worse. It's amazing, a person with dementia, a lot of times they remember that they didn't like that person, and they make it known. They let them know how much they didn't like them and still don't sometimes. But that really can cause some serious problems in a relationship. And let me just go ahead and say this too. When you see a loved one declining and you know that there's a strong possibility that they can no longer live independently, and you may be the one that they have to live with, and you have to be the one that they are going to count on to take care of them. If you have a spouse, if you have a partner, if you have children, you need to talk to them. You need to talk to them. Don't wait until the hospital bed is rolled up into the living room. You need to talk to them now and let them know this is happening. Give me some input, because sometimes they can come up with some solutions, that may not involve you having to even move them there. But it's a good workable solution. But you need to talk to them because the tension that will be in that household, oh goodness. And some of you all listening to me know just what I'm talking about. To avoid that, look, it's going to be difficult, but it is doable. It is doable, but you got to communicate. You have to, and put some strategies in place. Absolutely. Okay. We talked about career, relationships, plain old fun. Sometimes the fun just doesn't seem to exist anymore. Taking the kids to Six Flags. And a lot of times you can go, but you just don't have the energy to enjoy it. And that does happen. But, what is it that people say? Two things can exist together. A yin and a yang can exist. They can, because a lot of times when you as a caregiver, you just feel guilty. You just feel guilty, about going out, doing whatever. Look, feel guilty and go anyway. Okay? Go anyway. I'm telling you. And be mindful of the fact guilt doesn't serve a whole lot of good purposes, so we really want to work on that and just ask ourselves, but why am I? Why don't I think I deserve a night out? Why don't I? There's somebody there that's taking good care of mom. So why don't I? You need to do that self-talk. That's important. But I'm a huge advocate of caregivers getting the mental health counseling that they so desperately need. That is huge. Respite and mental health counseling are two of the hot buttons that I'm going to keep pressing. And as I shared the other day with someone, I will continue to be the mouth of the South, because I'm going to keep talking and keep sharing and keep making sure that people know exactly what caregivers need. They have to become more aware of what caregivers are going through. As I stated earlier, this may seem like shock value to some. And that's okay, because that's what it is. Some of it will be, because sometimes we have to be shocked into awareness. We have to be shocked into seeing that this person needs help. Remember all the pictures that they showed? They still do it, but it seems like there were even more a few years ago. They would show children in Africa sometimes, in such devastating conditions, that just really broke your heart. If nothing else, it really tugged on your heart. Yeah, it was shock value to get you to become more aware. And that's exactly what Caregiver Truths is. Absolutely. Well, listen, I'm going to wrap it up, but I want you to always remember, caregivers, you are just as important as the person you take care of. So take care of you. I'll see you next time.